You guys so excited? You watch that countdown go down and then boom, there we are. It's awesome, isn't it? It's so cool. I'm so glad to be with you guys today and join you with Terry Grigsby. Today is all about how to think big. And there's going to be five main points that we're going to be chatting about today on how can we think big? Because when it comes to being successful in your tutoring business, if you don't have the power to think big, then you are going to be less than extraordinary. And I know that you guys want to make a really big impact on all of your students. So keep listening to see, are there any tweaks that I can make so that I can really think big in my business? So thanks for joining us, Terry.
My pleasure. It's good to be here.
You
Let's
know,
think big together.
let's think big together. Isn't it fun to think big? I think it's so fun to think big.
It's
Like,
really important to your business.
it really is. So like I have like this thing that I do once in a while. Actually, probably more than once in a while. But I think about like you know that I want to be a snowbird. And so in my mind, I'm already a snowbird. It's already happening. I'm already saving money and I'm already picturing like what my house is going to look like. And every night I go on in to take a look at all the gorgeous houses that I could
Yeah.
purchase and buy. And
Wow.
I take a look at not just price and what I can afford. I'm like looking at the $1 million homes because why not? There's the possibility that I could afford the $1 million home. So why not take a look at them? Like why automatically like say, you know what, that's gonna be out of my budget. I'm never gonna be able to afford that, right? Like that's
Mhm.
what think big means to me. Like think mansion size big thoughts. Because when you start doing that, it starts bringing on in the possibility of well, what could I do in order to be able to do that? And you were
Right.
very similar to you did something very similar to that when you started really thinking big about your business and how many students you wanted to be able to get. You ended up, I remember writing down on a post-it note, I'm so excited. Was it 20 students? I'm so excited that I have 20 students.
No, it's 25. And I
25.
didn't write it just once. I wrote it every single day till it happened.
Right.
And
And
I
I
still have the post-it notes.
I
It
love
was
it.
like it was like 4 months of it, and then it happened
And then
because I
like
took
boom.
the action to make it happen. But every day I wrote that belief down. That
That
and also what I want to do in my business and how I wanted to grow it.
yeah. And so you believed that it could be possible even though you had no exact pathway on how to do it.
No, because I was just starting. But then you mentioned in one of the calls, you've got to think big and you got to think in present tense. And I'm like, oh, I don't think I do the present tense part. And
Mhm.
so I did that. And it was much more powerful when you put it in present tense, even if it's not happening right at that second. Putting it
Right.
in present tense made me take different actions because I had done that.
Right. So cool. So the very first thing, the very first tip that they had, this is chapter 4 of the magic of thinking big, is don't sell yourself short. And I think that's so important. It says, what beginning salary do you expect? And I think a lot of times when tutors think about tutoring, they don't start with what do I want my salary to be? They think about what do I want to get paid per hour.
Yeah.
Yet a lot of people are trying to replace their income. Like let's say they were teaching or doing something else prior. And so by thinking backwards and thinking about okay, well, what do I want my salary to be this year, and then thinking about how many students do I need to meet that salary, or do I need to charge more, is such a pivotal first step. What do you think?
Oh, yeah. I mean, when I first started, I mean, I'll just say when I first started, I had been unemployed for 2 years. So I
Mm-hmm.
could have gotten in that negative thinking, oh, I'll never be able to teach again. I'll never be able to teach again. If I kept saying that to myself, I know I would have never started tutoring ever.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, when I started, I was like, okay, if I want to replace my teacher income, how much do I need to make a year? How many weeks do I want to work? And then I did the math. Like, okay, well, maybe I can't charge that right this second because I didn't have any clients, but
Right.
that was my goal, right?
Right.
That was my goal to work towards.
And so what was the starting rate that you put yourself at?
Oh, because I came in, I honestly, people, I was only barely on Facebook. I knew nothing about the technology. I knew about computers because I taught computers, but nothing about being online. So I had a couple of guinea pigs I started with at just $20 an hour, but just
Wow.
so I could learn the technology. But I knew I wasn't going to stay at that. As soon as I got two people and I kept them at $20, very next person, I upped my rate. And every person I got after that, I upped my rate until I got to the rate that I knew I needed to be at.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't stay very long at a very low rate. It was probably just a couple of months before I got to a reasonable rate. So.
Awesome. Very good. Very good. Awesome. So
And
you
then
already
every
took those
time,
steps.
and that rate, I was going for $50 an hour, and I probably got that in about 3 months,
Mm-hmm.
2.5 months. But that wasn't my ending rate that I wanted. I was thinking much bigger than that. So every time I get booked solid, then I'll raise my rate again as new
Mm-hmm.
people come in.
Yeah.
So you taught me that, Miss Joanne.
Well, what about you guys that are listening to us? We have like 35 people watching us from Facebook and
Wow. Hey,
YouTube right
guys.
now. Woot woot. So tell us, you guys. Patricia says, I like that way of kind of upping your rate. It is because, like, you do have to start with where you're at belief wise. Like, if as well. And like Terry said, Terry actually started a lot higher than I did with her guinea pig because I started for free. I started with my nephew. It was free. I was like, look, I'm just starting this. I've been using these techniques with my students coming to my house, but now I want to be able to transfer that to being able to work online. And, I had to sell myself on free for an hour with my sister in law. Like, I had no idea I'd have to sell myself on free. Like, how, what? So, like, because they want to know, like, hey, is the time that we're investing, because I didn't realize that piece of it, the time we're investing, is it going to be worth it for us? Or is this going to be a waste of time for us? We don't want to invest in things that are a waste of time. It was pretty much what their mindset was at that point. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I had no idea that I had to really do this because I didn't know the value of being able to find out what is it that the child is struggling with first. I was just assuming I knew what he was struggling with and said I'd do a free assessment, but I had to sell her on the idea of doing like online tutoring. But it was 2010, so.
Yeah, but you were a teacher too. You already knew how to teach.
Oh yeah, I knew how to teach. It was will the technology work was really my
Yeah,
big
that
scary
was mine too.
thing. And so then after that, I did start charging $40 an hour. And then once I got book solid there, I moved it on up and up from there. So they say, think as big as you really are. Never, never, never sell yourself short. And I think as tutors, it's really easy for us to sell ourselves short.
And can I add to that? In your tutoring business, you have times when you're high and you're really book solid, and then you go lower. When I go lower, I tend to want to go lower in price. But then every time I've ever gone lower in price than what I normally charge, I always just hate myself that I did that because I know I'm not worth whatever that lower rate is.
Mm-hmm.
And then I switch back to what I know is my rate. And then people always come through the door when I do that. So you
Yeah.
got to think big. Don't sell yourself short.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the next step is to use big thinkers vocabulary. Use big, bright, cheerful words. Use words that promise victory, hope, happiness, pleasure. Avoid words that create unpleasant images of failure, defeat, and grief. So, the important measure, he says, of a person's vocabulary is not the size or the number of words he uses. Rather, the thing that counts, the only thing that counts about one's vocabulary is the effect his words and phrases have on his own and others' thinking. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm not someone that thinks negatively anyway when it comes to teaching or tutoring. Honestly, even from the beginning when I know people, I never thought it wasn't going to work. I've always thought from the first step that it was always going to work, but I knew it was going to be a boatload of work. And so, like, I hear some people say all the time, well, that didn't work for me. Well,
Mm-hmm.
that never is in my vocabulary. If
Mm-hmm.
something didn't turn out the way I wanted to, then I had to rework it and think through how I can do things differently to make it
Mm-hmm.
happen. And I think that's a much healthier attitude than it just didn't work for me. That just stops you in your track.
Right, exactly. And that's like what he says here, like it's no use is one of the phrases that creates small negative mind images, and he says instead you should be thinking let's keep trying.
Mm-hmm.
And when we are in a position of I don't know what to keep trying, that's when you connect with a community like we have, right? Because that's where you can open up your mind into trying new things, new angles, new ways of doing things so that you can get success.
Right. And even if you're not asking the question directly, just reading the post in our groups
Mm-hmm.
There's amazing stuff happening in there and all sorts of great ideas that can motivate you. And you could think, oh, that's a good thing to try. And I've
Mm-hmm.
done that just from reading other people's posts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
How
Um,
about you?
Well, I love this phrase here. It really gets me. It says the market is saturated. So on page 80, he literally says this. This is like written in the 1950s, right? And people are saying the market is saturated, and we hear that all the time with online tutoring, don't we? Like people are like, "Oh my gosh, now with COVID, everybody's online. The market is so saturated." And he says, "But imagine 75% of the." He says the negative small thinker is going to say, "Hey, 75% of the potential's already been sold. Better get out." But the positive mind says, imagine 25% of the market is still not sold. Count me in. This looks big.
Yeah, exactly.
There's still opportunity. And there's always going to be opportunity. There are always going to be kids that are struggling. New kids every single year struggling in
Mm-hmm.
something else that they need help with. So never think that there's not that the market is too saturated. The market, there are places that we go where the market is saturated and people start price wars with us, right? Like if I put myself on a platform and there's already 80,000 tutors on that platform, yeah, my chances could be less. But that's not
Yeah.
what we espouse here. We espouse here at the Online Tutor Coach that we brand ourselves, and maybe we use that little platform as like a way to get started and get some clients, but it's not like our go-to platform. It's just like one teeny weeny little piece of the puzzle to get us going. But it is not this is where I'm going to stay forever. It's all about branding yourself. And you do such a great job at branding yourself. What are some of the things that you've done to brand yourself?
Well, I do like colors and text, and I use my same picture everywhere. That's how
Mm-hmm.
I brand. And I picked a color psychologically that was good for math because it's actually the color of this shirt, which is kind of weird. That was on accident. Because when I did looked into the psychology of colors, blue is supposed to be a calming color. And I
Yeah.
thought people have so much math anxiety, which is what I want personally trying to brand.
Uh-huh.
That they see a cool color, it's going to be more relaxing. And I don't know. I don't know if it helps, but it doesn't hurt.
Well, exactly, exactly. I
Instead of
love
seeing red when you go to a math site, you're like, ah, that made me shocking.
well, it even like releases stress and anxiety, which is one of the things that your students specifically struggle with.
Yeah.
So that definitely,
How about
definitely.
you? What do you do for branding?
Um, these days I haven't done anything. Isn't that the funny? Like, here's the thing. Like, once you're out there and you're doing things over and over again over time, your reputation begins to take over and you don't have to do as much. So now, 10 years in to this game, I have people that are accidentally finding me. So in the beginning, we think people are going to find us accidentally when we create our website. But I put in so much time in the beginning with my YouTube channel, with my blog, with my website, and then had so many students coming in through the door that now word of mouth and people finding me on Google is all I need in order to get the amount of students. But that's not what it took in the beginning.
No, that's not what it takes to be.
So yeah, I think that's incredible. And now
The other
I'm
thing is,
still out there. I'm still out there. So people see me as somebody helping other tutors. And I think that also helps to build my credibility. So even though I don't advertise these days my reading tutoring, people can still see the current content I'm creating and see, oh, she's helping tutors. I wonder if she's still doing reading tutoring.
well, that's good.
And then they reach out. They just email me and bada bing, bada boom.
Another thing I think about thinking big is a lot of people will go to one platform or one type of advertising, and that's the only thing they try.
Yeah.
That's not thinking very big. Like you just said, putting yourself out there in all these different forms, that's thinking big. And every time I put myself out, I don't think, oh, this is a waste of time. I think I'm going to get at least one person doing this. I'm going to
Yep.
get one person doing that. I don't need 100 people. I need like 25, 30.
Right.
So
Exactly.
that's part of thinking big too, is thinking about the different ways you can advertise yourself
Yeah.
in more than one place.
Yeah, absolutely. And eventually, yeah, for people that are interested, they can even create other once you get that income stream going, you can create other income streams as well and not just have one income stream, but have several income streams going, and that will be life changing for people once that begins to happen. He says here, the competition has all the advantages. How do you expect me to sell against them? But he says this is the positive mind images. Competition is strong. There's no denying that. But no one ever has all the advantages. Let's put our heads together and we'll figure out a way to beat them at their own game.
Amen.
I love it. I love it. Oh, I love this. He says, I'm too young or old for the job. And he says, instead think,
don't look at me and tell me I'm old right now. Go ahead.
I'm not doing it. He says, being young. No, I was talking about being young. I don't know what you're talking about. Being young or old is a distinct advantage.
Oh.
Like if you're young, the advantage is that you are creative and you can think out of the box. Not necessarily that other people can't, right? But that's kind of like the image that a lot of people have. When you're older, not old, when you're older, like myself, when you're older, my kids tell me I'm old all the time. So, when I'm older, I've got more experience and wisdom underneath my belt.
Yeah.
And so there are benefits to both sides of the puzzle. So if other people aren't using our age to not want to work with us, we shouldn't be doing that either.
No. The other thing I was going to say about that is, thinking differently. That's a key to my success. Because when I try something, I always do research first and see what everybody else is doing. And then I think about how I could stand out differently than what they're doing. And I know that has helped me get people. And that was like the thumbtack experiment that I had when I first started. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try thumbtack for 1 week. I don't recommend it anymore. But for 1 week, I was going to do an experiment and try anything I could to stand out different from everybody else. And I got 10 clients in 1 week.
You did.
So that was only because I was thinking differently than everybody else. And I went into this going, I'm going to think differently than everybody else so that I stand out. And I do that in all my marketing. And if you do that, the world is your oyster. Like you can stand out from everybody and still be found.
Now, just so you guys know, those of you guys who are watching this now, we're not actually advocating using Thumbtack because they took a turn for the worse, and it is a terrible platform to go to now for online tutoring. Unless they have gotten better, I mean, it doesn't hurt to try it, but we didn't like the payment method that they ended up moving towards. It's okay to think about a lead as you have to pay money for that lead, but when you stop losing control over who you are contacting for certain jobs, that's where the problem kind of lays.
But you can go other ways of thinking differently that same way, going in whatever, like Craigslist. You go to Craigslist and do your research and find out how you could be different than what everybody else is posting.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So that's actually exactly what Matt Mankin was just asking. How is Craigslist? Craigslist is great. You just have to take a look on my channel. There is a video with Rom, ROMJB, and he shares a great strategy that he's been using. And so think about when you take a look at that strategy, don't try to replicate it exactly like Rom, but where would it fit and work with your style, like with your testimonials, your keywords that you'd be using, what cities you want to use. Like think about all the different things that you are possibilities when you use that platform. He says it won't work, let me prove it. Oh my gosh, this entire image is dark, gloom, disappointment, grief, and failure. But he says, instead, think it will work. It's going to work. Let me prove it. Let me prove it. It's going to work. So that was how I was with online tutoring. That the whole entire idea. So I had all these people telling me that I was going into online tutoring, and they're like, "Oh, really? You think that's going to be more effective than in-person tutoring?" And I was like, yeah, actually I do. I really do.
But for a while you were afraid to tell people that you were doing online tutoring, right?
Well, I had been creating all these, I was really procrastinating and didn't even know I was procrastinating. I couldn't even picture in my head that I was procrastinating. So I was taking all of my books and making PowerPoints out of them. Can you imagine how long this is taking, right? Just one PowerPoint book would take an hour to make. I made 200 of them.
Oh my gosh.
I put 200 hours into trying to take my resources and bring them into a platform online that would work for me, because I was closed minded to the idea that there would be resources online that I could just tap on into. I didn't
Right.
know. I mean, you don't know the things that you don't know, right? And so one day I'm talking to a friend. There's a group of us, and I'm talking to them, and I said, "Yeah, I'm going to start doing this like online tutoring thing." And they're like, "Oh, what company are you going to work for?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm not going to work for a company. I'm gonna do this solo. I'm going to do it on my own." And they're like, "Well, what are you doing to market it?" And I was like, "Ooh, yeah, I probably should do that." Like, that thought hadn't even crossed my mind. Like, you're right. I should be marketing it instead of wasting all this time right now with creating these books. I should be marketing. I should be thinking about how can I get clients. Like, that's what I should be focusing on, and and actually working with kids. And then when I started working with kids, I started finding resources online, and I started thinking about resources I had used in the school system that were online.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, the world began to change for me.
But keep in mind, that was 10 years ago. There probably weren't a million online tutors then.
No, there were not. No, there were not. And there was nobody I could really turn to. I mean, I would research people's names and stuff. I reached out to lots of people. I had one person who responded back to me, but I felt like every time I messaged her, I was bothering her. And so I
Mm-hmm.
was like, when I become successful, not if, when
Okay.
I become successful, I want to be that person that people can turn to, and I want to create a community of people that can support them so that they don't feel alone in their tutoring business.
And look what you've done.
I know, it's so exciting. It really is. It just excites me every day when I see that what was created from that thought. It's pretty incredible. Um, so one of the ways for to develop that think big is to compliment people personally at every opportunity. Do you
Just,
ever run into those people that like they criticize everyone and everything?
oh yeah.
Yeah. That doesn't build big thinking.
When I was like in my 30s, a billion years ago now,
Mhm.
and I was teaching in the classroom, there was always teacher lounges. And I would go in there, and everyone was always talking negatively about teaching or the kids. And I started realizing every time I went in there, it was just pulling me down. And I made a
Mm.
conscious decision that year that I would not go into the teachers' faculty and stay there. Like I would eat lunch in my room and stuff, and that I would only surround myself with other teachers that I knew were positive.
Right.
And that like changed my world. Like I was so
Right.
much happier. I created so much more than I ever did by being in that negative space. So
Mhm.
whatever your negative space is, you got to get out of there. You
For
got to
sure.
find people that are like-minded that think big like you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And Maria and Jay, thank you for the compliments. They said that I've done a great job with the community, and thank you for the community. You are welcome. It is something that had a very slow start for me. I didn't start even building it until 2012 because I really wanted to make sure that I could be a success first before I decided, oh, I'm going to just start teaching people how to do this. But yet I'm not successful, right? Like it wasn't something I wanted to add on because I didn't want to tutor anymore. And that's actually something that somebody mentioned to me. They said, what I love about you, Joanne, is that you're not doing this because you are done with teaching. You're doing this because you love teaching.
Right.
And they said that's what makes the difference. And I'm like, huh, I never thought about that. Yeah, that was our
And there's
brainer.
other people that have tried to be you that haven't gone through the work of getting tutors
Mm-hmm.
that I will not name names. And you go to their groups and you're just like, no, you can tell. They're like, they don't know what they're doing and they're not
Yeah,
building this environment. So
exactly, exactly. And they don't really understand the inside world of teachers, and what it is that we're doing. And but I'm not afraid of the competition. I care more about the collaborating with people as long as people are willing to collaborate and not be shady.
don't you think that's a really big point that you're not afraid of your competition?
Mm-mm, yeah, I do think
I
it's
think that's
important.
vital. I think that's vital for you to be successful in this is that you're not afraid of the competition. There's
Mm-mm.
so many people out there tutoring, yes, but they don't have your skills. They don't have Joanne's skills.
Right.
They don't have Ray's skills. So of course there's going to be plenty of people out there that we can get,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
I
And
know,
that's
but
what
that's
makes it so
really,
much
you
fun.
think that's secondhand, like, oh, who cares? But that's really important if you
Yeah,
want to think big.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, so the third tip here is to see what can be, not just what is. So a lot of people they're like, "Oh, I'm a realist." And realists out there, I know there are some of you watching right now. I have nothing against you. But if we only think in reality, the only thing we see is what we've accomplished in the past and what we currently have right now, and we have difficulty seeing into the future and what could be. What do you think?
Well, yeah. I mean, until you start thinking that way, you're not going to put things into action to make that happen
Mm-hmm.
because you're just going to be complacent and be happy where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to get bigger, you're going to have to think bigger to take those actions.
And you know what his number one suggestion is for this?
What?
Add value. Develop your power to see what can be, not just what it is, by practicing adding value. So you want to start asking yourself, what can I do to add value to the situation right now? Whether it's like you're in a group, right? And you're new to the group. How can you add value? It doesn't matter that you're a newbie. How can you add value? Everybody has the opportunity to add value. Everybody has the availability to just take, and never give, right? But if you change into that mentality of, you know what, I'm just going to keep adding value, you're going to see your bank account automatically rise.
And then it's funny because a lot of the people that I work with in your group, I'll ask them, well, what makes you special? Why should I hire you? What's special about you that I make me hire you? And they're like, I've never thought of that before. And I'm like, well, you have to think about it. Because if you can't convince yourself of your own value, how are you going to convince anybody else of your value?
Right.
It's a really important exercise to do. Even just writing it down makes it more real.
Yeah.
Like even just instead of just thinking about it, take out a piece of paper, write down what is my value as a tutor, and write down everything that makes you special. You don't
Right.
have to share it with anybody, but then use that when you have a sales conversation.
Yeah. And sometimes you don't even know what your value is. So keep asking yourself that question. So I thought my value in the beginning was my experience in the school system, which, sure, it can be. Um, but it wasn't until 1 year later when I realized my value is I can close the gap a full year with 8 to 12 hours of instruction, and which makes me stand out more, my experience in the school system or the results that I can get. My results, right? And so I was going to really focus. That's what I began focusing on. That's how I began marketing myself. In the beginning, I was real vague about it. I can close the gap in a zap.
Cool.
I didn't know what that zap was going to be. I knew I needed to do research on what is the zap, how long will it take me, and so I did have that in the back of my mind. Like, okay, I'm going to pay attention to this because how long will it take me to close the gap for all kinds of kids, not just
And tracking it so that you had that info.
exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are definitely things. And there's so um the two other things that he mentions inside of this book is getting the big picture of your job, and don't think about trivial things. Focus your attention on those big objectives. And I think this is really, really important. So um, he talks about on page 98, he lists the different situations, a petty thinker's approach and the big thinker's approach. So the situation, progress. The big thinker thinks expansion. Future. The big thinker sees the future as very promising. Competition, competes with the best. Budget problems, figures out ways to increase income and buy more of the necessary items. Goals. This is going to amaze you guys. The big thinker sets goals high. Goals, vision is preoccupied with the long run. Security regards security as a natural companion of success. Companionship surrounds himself with persons with large progressive ideas.
Okay.
And mistakes ignores errors of little consequence. We can't look at those little mistakes and be like, oh my gosh, I should have really spent more time on that, and I forgot to dot that I, darn it, and we beat ourselves
And
about
that
it.
puts a lot of people when they're first starting, it paralyzes them Like
Mm-hmm.
all those little mistakes paralyze them. Like I noticed that as I've started working with people, because I'm the person that threw everything out as soon as I got it done. Like you
Yeah.
told me to go make a website, so I made a website and I threw it up, even though I knew it wasn't great, just to get it out there. It wasn't the little mistakes or all the mistakes I made, because I fine tune those as I go. But some people, you tell them to make a website and hit publish, they're like, I can't do it. I
I'm
can't do it.
frozen. I'm
There might
frozen.
be something wrong. There might be a typo. You
Mm-hmm.
just got to get over that, and you got to put it. Think like I know when I was going through your course, I was thinking I need to get all my business stuff up and running so I can get clients going right away. And
Mm-hmm.
so I didn't mind throwing stuff up and getting things done quickly and just putting them up and then fine tuning them after I got them going. So
Exactly.
that's just an
Exactly.
example of that.
I love it. So next week, you guys come join us. We're going to be talking about how to think and dream creatively. If you haven't had a chance, if you just go to the magic of thinking big, like if you like type that in and put PDF, you'll find a free PDF of this book, and you'll be able to follow along, read with us. And we're going to be doing chapter 5 next week and really talking about how does it impact our tutoring businesses. So thank you today, Terry Grigsby, who's our one of our coaches here at the Online Tutor Coach. Uh, she is incredible. We love having her. And she also now helps tutors with building their online tutoring business. So thank you for everything that you do here, Terry.
Well, thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see all of you guys later. Bye, everyone.
Bye.